I've shared in the other services, Psalm 127 has been key. Psalm 127:1 says that unless the Lord builds a house, he labors in vain who builds it. And so we need to make first things first, a right priority. The word priority comes from the word prior, which means what are we putting before? So what are we putting before those things? And Andrew Peterson is an amazing songwriter, and we're acquainted with him, but he tells a story of Ron Block, who is the banjo player with Alison Krauss, considered the best banjo player in the world, right? And he says, people will say, well, I wish I could play banjo like Ron Block. And he says, no, you don't. Oh, yeah, I wish I could play banjo like Ron Block. He says, no, you don't. Because he said, I know Ron Block. And when he's not on the road and he's not in the studio, he's 8 hours a day in his basement playing his instrument. You know, if we want something and we are not working toward getting it, we're not doing those things, we're not creating those priorities, we really don't want it. And so, you know, if you were to ask, what is your priority? God and family would probably be what you all would say. And so my challenge would be, how is your life reflecting that? I got challenged by that from a pastor of mine who told me not to forget that my family was my first ministry. That's where Family First Ministries comes from, because I was busying myself with a lot of good things, but I was not pouring into my family. So it starts with leading our families in prayer and devotion, and then seeking where the Lord leads from there.
I think another part of it is coming with expectation that God will move, that God will do something, and that miracles happen, and that and not just praying prayers, but really believing what you're praying and believing that God will do what He promises.
I think that we need to instill in our families that God's truth is true. The Bible is true. We can depend on that. We can trust. We can be obedient to His word, and His being obedient brings us to peace that passes understanding. We can love each other in our families, encourage each other, as the word says, build each other up. We talked about that a lot in our family as the kids were growing up. So just being obedient to His word.
I think also kind of echoing what they've already said, but just knowing where you stand and knowing what God is calling you to do, because the world is going to throw other things at you that are going to be opposite of that. And maybe all those things might not be bad, but it's maybe not what you're supposed to be involved in or doing at the time. And so just knowing, just knowing His voice, and just to be able to kind of sort that out and know where you're supposed to be.
They're family just like us. And how many of you are stretched in 1,000 ways? Some of you grandparents.